The Minding Your Business podcast comes to you once again, brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network on thebinge.com. You can check us out here at the podcast, the Minding Your Business podcast. We're here for episode number 98. I'm your host, Champ Ron. The MYBpodcast.com is the move you need to make. We're here Friday, June the 21st, 2019. What do?
What we do here is go back.
All right. Thank you so much for joining. I've got a loaded show for everybody today. It's been a crazy week, a lot of things going on, but I'm excited to be back with you today for episode number 98. I want to go ahead and bring on our first guest. Her name is Jennifer DiMotta of DiMotta Consulting. This next guest comes to you by way of Virginia, some of my old stomping grounds there in the DMV. And for over 20 years, Jennifer has had her practice. She's a Midwest native, and we want to really get some great nuggets today, MYB, from her experience in her consulting practice. So I don't want to give it away, but I want to bring on Jennifer. Jennifer, are you there?
I am here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Minding Your Business podcast, and the MYB community is excited to have you on.
Yeah, I'm excited to get chatting with you.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of thumbs up, a lot of hearts, and that sort of thing. So thank you all so much for that. And Jennifer, are you ready to bring some value today and some insight to the MYB community?
I am. I really am looking forward to this.
All right. Excellent. Well, let's jump right in because I was sharing with the audience just a little bit about your background, but I want to make sure I do it justice, and who better to tell it than you? So, tell us a little bit about how you became the superhero as Jennifer and kind of what you're doing here in the community.
Oh, wow. Well, let's see if I can live up to that superhero status that you just gave me. Thank you. I am a Midwest native. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I love the fact that I'm a Midwesterner. I think it gives me strong work ethic and hard work, and that's, I think, a big part of my success to date. I have spent the last 20 plus years in e-commerce and digital marketing, which is, most people can't say that they've spent that long of time, and I'm not going to give the credit to myself solely, because back 22 years ago, I don't even think I knew how great and how impactful this e-commerce and digital marketing would really be. And I would say it just, again, right place, right time kind of opportunity, like most people would say. Is the jumping off point was when I was in catalog marketing, when we used to do catalogs to communicate our products and whatnot. We needed, one of the companies I worked for, we needed to form a task force to develop its very first website.
Okay.
And I got a chance to be a part of that, and I thought it was really interesting. I couldn't figure out exactly how people would actually order online, but it was a good start, and that was in the mid-90s. And then I served as the lead in digital marketing and e-commerce across a variety of pure plays for a few years. The biggest pure play where I had the most impact and learned a ton was at this company called Hay Needle, which is about a $300 million business. It's under Walmart now. Walmart acquired it a couple years ago. But Hay Needle started out as this little $2 million hammocks.com site. And I was there when it went from that to essentially to Hay Needle. And it was an exciting ride. It was basically a startup ride. It was incredible, and it was e-commerce only. So the core competencies were about understanding how the consumer buys online and how you manage the financials of an e-commerce business and how you acquire customers from a multitude of digital marketing channels. And after my stint through Pure Play, I opened up my expertise into big box retail, because about mid to late 2000s is when big box finally started saying, "Oh, this is actually something.
Right,
We should get
right.
into this."
Right.
This is so interesting.
Yeah, what a concept.
So then positions started opening up, and I headed up the business side, really the strategic side of e-commerce for Office Depot, and then I headed up all of it for Sports Authority. And those few years were really great for me, because being in pure plays and startups, there's not a ton of formality. There's not a ton of structure. There is we have financial governance, and obviously you don't grow on a whim. But big box retail, the value that it gave me was learning how to operate in a much bigger organization, where I really had to pull on a number of different departments to achieve certain things. So there was relationship building and leadership that started to fall into my realm that I needed to develop. And then on top of that, just the formalities of a big bucks business, a big corporation. So I got a lot of value out of learning that. On top of that, I was able to give value with the e-commerce and digital marketing experience. And then, I went into a couple others, but basically what I said to myself, and this is, I'm getting to why do I have a consulting business today, is I would come in and e-commerce would be at somewhat of a blank sheet of paper. It would be pretty small in size, less than 2% of the total company's business, or not exist at all. And I would come in and build this business. I would build the strategy. I would build the team. I would build the P&L. I would get it to a point where it wasn't really on maintenance mode, but it was on optimization mode. And then I just needed to seek the next building opportunity. So that would be like every 2 to 3 years. Okay. There was all this, kind of, why is she going from place to place every 2 to 3 years? Well, that's the way I operate. Okay. And so I say, well, how about I figure out how to, first of all, do this without having to say goodbye every 2 to 3 years. And secondly, and really clients actually want to say goodbye to me after a couple of years. And secondly, how do I do this at more rapid speed across more clients? Because what I still see to this day is too many companies don't understand digital and e-commerce landscape. They're in complete fear of it. They don't know how to operate, and it's not good, because they don't know how to leverage a very high impact what could be asset to them. So I wanted to make sure I can get the education out there. I mean, we all see it. Amazon and Walmart are taking significant portions of market share across e-commerce. Sure. And I'm just trying to do my part in possibly spreading that a bit for different reasons, but giving back, trying to spread out that market share back to the manufacturers, back to the brands, and back to some of the specialty retailers. So I'll kind of pause there for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot to unpack there from you, Jennifer. So as you're transitioning from your career, and I'm getting a lot of thumbs up and amens, because I think a lot of us have had that experience of, as the marketplace is dynamic and as it changes, that longevity that you have in your workforce career, it just isn't there anymore. And, I could definitely relate to, kind of being at places for 2 or 3 years and kind of saying, oh, okay, either they're tired of me and there's nothing else for me to do, I'm overpriced, or I'm tired of them and I'm ready to move on. And so I could definitely relate there. How do you develop your clientele in the e-commerce space? And the reason I ask that is I'm in bank consulting, and I don't know if you face this, but I certainly do. There's a lot of know-it-alls, quite frankly, and you mentioned a lot of people don't have quite the knowledge and expertise in e-commerce, and I see that a lot in banking. And so, how are you overcoming some of the quote-unquote know-it-alls who believe they can either do it all themselves, or, like you mentioned, they're fearful of it and they do nothing? So how are you kind of bridging that gap to get, kind of warm, client opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, that's funny you say that, because I don't have the experience of working with people who are know-it-alls in my
really?
clientele. I certainly had that experience when I was at a couple companies full time. You know, I'm the head of e-commerce, and I've got the head of marketing and the head of merchandising that believe that they know e-commerce better than I do.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, I actually love feedback because it makes me step back and think, okay, what they're really saying is this. So it usually gives me some value. You know-it-alls, if you know how to take what they say, they will give you value. You just have to know how to turn their commentary around into something that may be something that you could utilize.
Yeah.
The people who fear is the bigger problem. And their fear isn't, they don't sit there and go, I fear digital. It comes out in a different way.
Okay.
It's not good. It's
Right.
usually, I'll give you the example that I'm assuming a lot of your audience knows, which is the store side of a big box retailer fears e-commerce on some level. Whether they want to call it fear or not is a different conversation for a different day. But they fear that e-commerce is going to take away their business. And that can come out in a multitude of ways, like, you know, the product parity or the strategy parity or whatever. What I deal with, okay, so here's what's kind of interesting. When I went into consulting, I had been in the retail side of e-commerce for 18 years, and I thought, okay, naturally my customer is retail.
Right.
It's got to be. I've been in retail my whole career. Why wouldn't it be? What it turns out is because I'm a builder and I build from a blank sheet of paper, and that's not where retailers are anymore for the most part.
Right.
It ended up being the direct-to-consumer market, the brands, the manufacturers of the products who are looking to go right around those retailers and go directly to the consumer. That is my new set of customers.
Okay.
And the way that I've acquired all of those customers, and I'm very lucky, but I think it was also just building up for 20 years, is I have a network at this point in time because I've been in this business a long time. And I have a network. I have relationships with people. And so when people heard that I was going to consulting, referrals started coming. And so that's how I continue to get business, is through referrals, which is great. And that's the only way I have needed to get business. And again, I consider myself very lucky for that because I don't want to cold call people.
Right.
It's not my desire. I mean,
Right.
It's a heck of a lot better when they come to you and they're in desperate need of someone who understands digital. And so going back to the fear, they're in desperate need of somebody helping them understand what the heck this means. This is like landing on Mars and figuring out how to live. They literally don't understand it. And the thing that I do is I try to understand what their other business is. Usually their other business is wholesale. These manufacturers are wholesaling their product now they're wholesaling it to people like Amazon because we're in a different market. So they don't even know it, but they are starting to learn the core pillars of e-commerce and digital, just because online wholesale is forcing them to understand content optimization and price elasticity and shipping parameters and all kinds of things that they've really never had to think about. They're having to think about now. So there's a few steps forward. The other thing is they're realizing unless they get into the arena of social media, their brand doesn't really exist in this day and age. Basically, they have got to get out there, and it's no longer putting out these press releases. That is just not, that's not going to do it. Unfortunately, what is going to do it is social media. So they're most of the time hiring social media agencies to get started. But once you hire an agency, you want to learn, you want to educate yourself, you want to understand what's your ROI. And so they're being a little bit forced into that. But where the rubber meets the road is when they really think about direct to consumer, which essentially is on the commerce side about how do I sell my product directly to the consumer. And so that's where I jumped in because I've done it over and over and over and over again. They trust me because they can see my track record.
Right.
They see what I've done, and I am also so used to all of the arguments at the beginning that I know how to either respond to them or just stay quiet and listen and be understanding. I've just been through it over and over, and it's just not different whether it's between retail or direct to consumer. It's the same sort of fears that they have.
Yeah, definitely. And so, Jennifer, what size companies do you typically work with? And has that always been the case? Do you have kind of a swim lane, so to speak, of the size of company that you work with in terms of your consulting and helping them develop those core competencies around e-commerce?
So that's a great question. And in my first 12 months of consulting, what I goaled myself with was, okay, I just need to learn. I'm going to take every piece of business I can get. I didn't realize I would actually get too much business, but I would take every piece of business I could get, and I would learn what size of company works, what type of activity works, because I have such a broad scope of knowledge. What I learned was, because I'm more at the strategic end, generally speaking, it needs to be 100 million plus type of company.
Okay.
And that is, they get, and usually that 100 million plus is 99, if not 100% wholesale. They
Sure.
just aren't even doing direct to consumer.
Yeah.
But they have an interest, and they also have the capital, because once I start working through a financial model and helping them understand what the investment is upfront and ongoing, I need to make sure it's worth my time giving them that information, because I need to make sure they've got the capital to be able to do this.
Yeah, and so with the capital piece of it, Jennifer, how do you determine that? Because a lot of people, I have people here in the MYB community who start their consulting practice, and it's very hard for them to determine up front what their value is, and in terms of how they relay that value to their prospect or their customer. And so how did you
what my value is?
Yeah, well, the value in terms of what your cost is, right? And so a lot of people, when they start their consulting practice, they don't really know what to charge, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so, how did you determine or kind of know that, hey, this $100 million company that you've identified these issues, how do you determine what's your expense? Because a lot of people that come to me that I talk with, Jennifer, they have a fear of either overselling themselves and not getting the business, or underselling themselves and leaving money on the table. And so how did you kind of right size that, if you have?
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, that is the number one concern across all consultants. Number one by a long shot. And it's so variable. And I ran a women consultants meetup once a month, every month for about a year and a half. And this was the number one concern every time that we had conversations about. And it's a hard question to answer. There's just not one easy answer. What I started doing was I ratcheted my hourly rate up at some point in time, but I felt like what I could do, if I had to simplify it, this is what I felt like I could do. I took my last salary, I took it down to an hourly rate, and I doubled it.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I would suggest starting with. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I charge pretty high per hour. And it's dependent. If somebody makes me charge per hour, I charge really high. I usually get clients who are willing to commit to like a retainer, and then they get a better deal.
Sure.
So there's going to be tiers involved, but the highest is actually about 2.5 times what my last salary, broken down by hour, was. So, because remember, you're not getting benefits and vacation and all that kind of stuff. And as much as people think that they're going to control their own time because they're their own boss,
right?
They're not.
They're not. Exactly.
However many clients they have, that's how many bosses they have.
Right.
So
I say that all the time.
So I would start there. Now, I'm going to say this. because hopefully this gives people confidence. This is why I tell the women I work with, I have never had anyone try to negotiate my rate, not even once.
Wow.
Right, exactly. So if you think people are going to come back, and now I am on the strategy side, and so I can't speak to people who are doing the actual execution. If they're like getting into, I don't know, they're taking customer service calls or something like that. I cannot speak to that. But if you are on the strategic side, this might be true for you too. I have never had anyone negotiate my rate.
Yeah, and I've never had anybody negotiate. I tend to do more of a flat rate. And like you mentioned, I definitely agree. I did the same thing. I took my last salary in my last job, and I actually tripled it, is the number. But yeah,
Good for you.
You could double or triple it. And I did more. I do a little bit more of a flat rate, which it incorporates my hourly rate, because I generally know, depending on the task and the strategy, I generally know the time it's going to take for the most part. And so I have a fairly flat rate, and it includes my travel, because I actually, when you spoke of the Midwest, I was actually just in Omaha about a month ago, working with some bank prospects and partners up there. So I actually do the majority of my work is in the Midwest.
Did you hang out with Warren? Was he there?
No, he wasn't. I went by his house, and unfortunately, he wasn't home. But I did go by his house.
Gosh.
I did go by his house.
I've been to his house.
Have
only
you?
To drop off flowers.
Oh, there you go.
I was the flower delivery girl from one billionaire to another billionaire. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And but I did leave my card, so maybe I'll get a phone call from you.
Maybe you'll get a call. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And so our guest today, Jennifer DiMotta with DiMotta Consulting LLC. And so, Jennifer, as you're working through your clients, you mentioned earlier about Walmart and Amazon, and they're trying to create this kind of conglomerate and kind of corner the market. Are they good to work with from a wholesale or even direct to consumer standpoint, or are there concerns in the marketplace about those large players in their presence?
Oh yeah, I feel like that's like the big pink elephant in the room these days is obviously from a consumer point of view, Amazon's fabulous, right? And I think they have it right. And I'm glad they came about, because frankly, everything needed to turn. Because the internet was going to turn it around anyway, from a retailer-controlled market to a consumer-controlled market. It was going to happen anyway. Amazon has sped it up and then put the bar higher and higher and higher and higher, which is great. That's what should have happened anyway. Sure. However, and I actually can't speak as much to Amazon about this as I can to Walmart about this. I mean, Walmart is known in the industry to get the best, negotiate really hard with their vendors. Right. And so direct-to-consumer brands need to know that is part of what they believe in, because they believe in then turning that around and also giving lower prices to their consumers. So they will push that price down. Now, by the way, they are not the only two that are doing that these days, because there are other retailers that are trying to compete with those two. Now you've got another halo effect of several other retailers trying to also push your prices down. Sure. And so one of the things I've done with a couple of the direct-to-consumer brands is we've just normalized the pricing across the board, and then they price scrape each other for retails, and now they can go after each other to figure out who's going to be the lowest at retail. But we've normalized to keep the price consistent across those individuals who are those big box retailers who are looking at each other, so that it just doesn't get so hard. Because one of the brands I work with, they gave a really strong wholesale price discount to, I won't name the retailer, but a pretty significant retailer with great market share in a certain category. And it just spun out of control. The halo effect was very negative. Amazon came back and said, what's going on? Walmart came back and said, what's going on? And so you just got to know they're all watching each other. So the minute you make a decision, and this is sort of an omni-channel view in a direct-to-consumer business, is the minute you make a wholesale price decision somewhere, you need to know that that impact could reside across a number of different retailers, and you got to be prepared for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. It definitely does. And you're exactly right in terms of, some of the other players that are looking to compete with both Amazon and with Walmart. And you're right, from a consumer standpoint, it's definitely, my wife's all over Amazon. And
I know.
And I realized,
they're so good.
We were even paying for 2 Amazon Primes. I was like, why are we paying for 2 Amazon Primes? But yeah, so anyway, they've got that pretty well locked. And so I'm really interested into, what's going to be, kind of down the line as it relates to e-commerce and as it relates to, some of those large players and, the other players that get in to compete with them. I'm really curious. What's kind of your thoughts on, kind of down the line, 2, 3, 5 years from now? Will the marketplace continue to expand? Do you think education from companies that are wholesaling will improve, or is there something else totally on the horizon that we should be looking out for?
Yeah, I'm not surprised Amazon has moved to one day, and
sure.
Obviously you can also get Prime now, so you can get a ton of things the same day, and so we're going to have to find different differentiators that create so much value that somebody would step away from their Amazon account and actually go buy somewhere else. And some of those are probably just going to be things that we can't even imagine today. But they're definitely they're the company that just blows me away, because if they run the marathon in 2 hours, and next year they're going to run the marathon in an hour and a half. They are never sitting around complacent and saying, we got this, we're good to go kind of thing. They are constantly just pushing and pushing and pushing, and I think that's what constantly keeps them ahead. What they think of next, I don't know, but I'm excited to always find out. I've got Amazon as one of my top Google alerts, because it's kind of like, what are they going to do next? It's so interesting to see it, because they have such a wide audience. It's basically the world, and anything they do has severe impact across every other retailer or direct-to-consumer brand. And if people think they're insulated from that,
right,
that's the biggest issue. They're not. You're never insulated from anything Amazon does just because you sell a different product, or you think your product's more complicated, your service is more complicated. It's not true. They're setting the bar conceptually. They're saying things need to be faster. They're not saying you need to get your toilet paper faster. It's a lot deeper than that,
right,
than, getting products one day. It's setting high bars and never stopping. Keep increasing the bar.
Well, and one of those bars, particularly as it relates even to me, Jennifer, is in the banking business. So I work with a lot of community banks, and they're scared, to death of Amazon getting into banking. Just imagine.
Now, I'm on the corporate board at Midland States Bancorp,
yes,
which is an Illinois bank.
Yes.
And we talk about that too. We talk about, the disbursement of deposits.
Sure.
Where's the money going, right?
Yeah.
Could be going into Venmo or PayPal or Amazon or Starbucks. There's some, somebody did some study, and the amount of money that's sitting in people's Starbucks accounts is like in the billions.
It is.
I believe.
Yes, it is. That is very true.
Yeah. So, yes, that's exactly. So it has widespread, worldwide impact. And
hey, Jennifer, did we lose you? I'm not sure if you hit mute.
Are you there?
Oh, yep, I'm here. We might just hit a quick snag, but no worries. So
I have no idea what happened there.
Yeah, not a problem.
Well, anyway, I mean, we know that Amazon has a lot more impact than just retail. It's impacting the financial industry, the insurance industry. So, we have to get our innovation chops chopping, basically.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. So, we all know they're looking to take over the world, and we'll just have to see in what avenues they are able to do that and how it affects the rest of us. So,
yeah.
But the good thing is they've got people like you out there that are educating the marketplace and helping people level up their channels, and that's a great thing. And so, Jennifer, we definitely appreciate your time on the day. I know you're extremely busy, and I've got some connections to Midland Bank as well. I think they're in Effingham, right?
They are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, they are. I've done some CRA work with them.
Oh, neat.
So
okay,
so
cool.
they are a good CRA partner. Working with senior Crime Stopper programs and protecting some vulnerable seniors in some assessment areas. So I'm very familiar with them. They're great folks. I'll probably be there next month to stop by and visit. So.
Oh, neat. Well, we'll be there at the beginning of August for our next board meeting. So
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, cool.
Yep,
Neat.
so great stuff. And so, Jennifer, I guess as we're kind of wrapping up, what are 2 or 3, best practices that you have that can, help someone that's, they're sitting at their job right now and they're thinking, God, I'd love to do that. I'd love to start my consulting, practice, or, maybe they've started and they've hit a few snags that, they feel like it's setting them back. What are kind of 2 or 3 best practices you can share?
Yeah, well, I mean, from a consulting practice point of view, I would say number 1 is I make sure I keep up with my financials. So I do my own little mini P&L. And really it's as simple as, putting your earned income in and putting your expenses down. And,
sure.
And get yourself educated as to what you can expense. But being very disciplined and diligent about getting your financials done every month, I think, is a big one. I'm really big on that because I think you can see a bigger picture when you start pulling your financials together.
Yep.
Number 2 is I went into, I had 20 years of experience, and I went into this and I learned a ton in the first 12 months and really changed what I thought about as my customer, what I thought about as my service. So if you're looking at going into it, don't go into it with a framework that you believe is right, but be flexible enough to modify the framework as you learn, because you could pick up activities that people see that you can do that you never saw that you could do. And you could find that you really have a passion for those. So
yes.
Really have the flexibility for that. And number 3 is consulting is all about relationship building. So make sure that you're building relationships, network with people that you trust and that you have had a relationship, and let them know you're considering consulting.
Yes.
And get some feedback and get some thoughts from them. Join a meetup that's a group of consultants, get feedback from them, start reaching out to maybe potential clients, just build the relationships.
Yeah.
And that will serve you extremely well.
Yep, absolutely. That is all great insight and great nuggets, Jennifer. We're getting a lot of hearts and a lot of thumbs up with that. So I think that's really encouraging, as well as very practical and strategic. So I definitely thank you for that. And your contact info is going to be in the show notes. And so for those of you that are listening and watching live, you'll be able to see that in the show notes when this particular episode is released later this afternoon, on how you can visit Jennifer's website, which is DiMottaConsulting.com. You can go out there and learn more about what she does and be able to connect with her on social media. That's Top Ecom Guru, TOPECOMMGURU, there on Twitter, as well as DiMotta Consulting on Facebook. You can also connect with Jennifer on LinkedIn if you want to network that way. Just her name, Jennifer DiMotta. So, Jennifer, thank you so much. This has been really fun. You've given us some great insight and nuggets into the world of e-commerce, which some people are familiar with and some aren't. And so I believe MYB community will take away from this some great value and great insight. And so I thank you so much. I know you're busy and coming to us on a Friday, so I really thank you.
Well, thank you, and thank you, audience, for the thumbs up. And I can't see him, but I am thanking you now for all those good hearts. And I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer. And we'll speak soon, because I'd love to hear some more from Midland and some things that you're doing kind of there in the Illinois area. I'm actually attending the Illinois Bankers Conference in Austin this next week. I'm leaving on Sunday, and so I'll be there at their annual conference.
Yeah, I think one of our board members is attending that. I won't be there, but I think one of our board members is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I look to connect with them and some other folks. So, but again, thank you, Jennifer. Have a great weekend. Best wishes to you personally and professionally. And if you find that I can be a resource, certainly let me know.
Sure will. All right, thank you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jennifer. All right. So that was Jennifer DiMotta of DiMotta Consulting, LLC, Midwest native. She's there in D.C. And that's just great, quick nuggets from someone that's a 20-year professional, MYB. So I hope that you're able to connect with her. It's good to connect with professionals like that, all over the place. And so what we want to do now is I want to bring on my next guest. She is well respected here in the community, and I'm really elated. She is the program director of a great summer youth program here in Memphis. For those of you that maybe aren't as familiar with Memphis, this young lady's been doing great community work for some time now, and I've got the opportunity to actually be part of this summer youth program for youth that are going to be presenting business ideas and working collectively and collaboratively to be able to do so. And so my next guest is Wendolyn Payne. I want to bring her on in her own way, and we want to hear some about her background and about this great program, because many of you, whether you're in Memphis or not, you may be interested in connecting and providing some collaborative value to this program, because as you've seen, all of us are a product of our upbringing and our mentorship and who we're around and what we're exposed to. And I've shared that with you, MYB, on countless occasions. I wasn't born, I didn't walk out ready to go, right? I wasn't a ready-made product. I've had development, I've had mentorship. And so Wendolyn is on the forefront of this here in Memphis. And so, Wendolyn, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Ron.
Right. Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
Yes, let me get you up just a little bit here, and then we will be fine. So I believe I can hear you now.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity. I am so excited to get this conversation going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have this conversation, and those that are live through Spreaker, they are engaged as well, and they were waiting for you. So,
hi, everyone.
And then shout out to those that'll be on Facebook Live, that'll be checking this out possibly a little later on. As the recorded episode comes out. But Wendolyn, let's get right to it, because as I mentioned, you've been in the community doing, great work, and you've got this great youth program that you're heading up. So talk to us a little bit about your background, and then how you became connected with this program and what the program's about.
Okay. So I am a true born, raised Memphian. I tell people that I've been in 3 different neighborhoods. Started off in Orange Mound.
Yes.
Then went to North Memphis and graduated from Westwood. As we say, Westwood for life.
There you go.
So I am a true Memphian, born and raised here, and I am what I truly believe is a product of the village. And so went to school in the Shelby County schools, Memphis City school system, went to Southwest Community College, graduated from there. And how I came about with this program is actually in the church that I belong to. I was an individual that grew up in the church, and our ministry has always been about outreach, and they pushed education, and they also pushed understanding life skills. So long time ago, under a summer youth program under former Mayor Willie Harrington, I got my first exposure to corporate America.
Okay.
I'll never forget it. I was a summer intern. It was my 9th grade summer, and I got assigned to Federal Express. And it shows you how it goes into this program, how the visual for a young person is so important. My mother asked me that previous year, what do you want to do? And I gave her some pie in the sky answer because I really didn't know.
Right.
And she encouraged me to try vocational school. And personally, I had my own stigmatism of vocational school, but I tried it. And that year, they actually had a special program where I learned to work a printing press.
Okay.
I learned office technology, and I learned data processing, which I didn't know is that equipped me. So when I went to Federal Express for a summer internship, I already had skills that when I went into the summer internship, I could actually produce. And what's so important about the visual, I got a chance to see Black women in corporate suits leading the meetings. I saw women that looked like me in power, where people were taking direction from them. And I automatically knew then, I don't know what exactly it is they're doing, but that's what I want.
Right.
It was just the visual. It was the visual, and they mentored me. And from that point on, Ron, I didn't even wear tennis shoes after that. Because in my mind,
right.
No, Ron, seriously, in my mind, I was a businesswoman.
Right.
I knew then I was
right.
going to work in a corporate office. I knew then I was nothing wrong with any other jobs, but I just knew I was going to be in an office. I knew I was going to be at a board table.
Right.
I knew it was like, but it was so powerful, the visual that I saw.
Right.
What I did not know that at that time, Willie Brooks.
Yes.
I don't know if you know Mr.
Yep.
Willie Brooks. He was also one of I call him the ambassadors of the summer program. He gave me responsibility over interns at that time through Federal Express, and the skills that I learned from what he gave me responsibility, and from those two young ladies that were my leaders at the time, I had no idea that my future would be human resources, because where I started at Federal Express as an intern was compensation.
Okay.
Had no idea. And so how does that bring me to this point where I am right now with this program? Our pastors of this ministry, they are so focused on making sure not only do the children or young people have education, but life skills. So we prepare them for the workforce. We get them ready. We tell them how to interview. We tell them how to dress. That's all good. But you and I both know once a person gets on the job,
right,
and they become comfortable, then it's like, where did they come from?
Right, exactly.
Oh my God.
No, exactly.
They begin to take on the behaviors that are not appropriate in the workplace. And then what we, the color of brown, don't realize is that we have to be very mindful that we're always being evaluated. I used to be a recruiter, and I tell people, you're being interviewed everywhere you go.
Yes.
When you come for a job, you are literally being interviewed from the moment you get out your car, because you have no idea who's watching you. And
exactly.
Exactly. And so that's where this summer program comes into. So where my life changed is when they asked me to take it over, because we've had summer programs in this ministry for a while now, and I took it over 4 years ago at their asking, coming from where my experience was, is how can I teach young people the foundation of what I believe a leader needs. And so we are at 4 levels of the Summer Youth Development Program. Level 1 students, we take 7th through 12th. We do not charge for the program.
Okay.
There is no special requirement. There's no essay or anything like that. It's just if you apply, And if we have the space and you meet the deadline of getting your application in, we take you. Simple as that. So level, and Ron, please tell me when I need to pause.
No, you're fine. No, you keep, listen, this is all, Wendolyn, this is all about you, girl. You keep going.
So the level 1 students, when students come in, it doesn't matter if they're in 7th grade or 12th grade. I'm a firm believer, you need the foundational leadership skills, because here's what I've seen in my experience in corporate America and in the world in general. We see people in leadership that lack accountability, integrity, character,
facts,
and and so why not start at the very beginning? So when they are at those roles that they have the power of influence and they have the power to make decisions, they understand what it means to follow your character. Why not we help them understand what it means to be accountable? And most importantly, understand who they are. Because I'm a firm believer, if you don't know who you are, you won't be able to lead anybody else because you can't lead yourself. That means any type of influence that comes your way, you will sway because you don't have a firm foundation in who you are, what your standards are, what you will do and what you will not do. And so level 1, that's what we focus on. Understanding that about themselves. We focus on communication skills, the written, the verbal, and especially the nonverbal.
Yes.
Because I'm a visual learner, I'm an audible learner. And I'm a visual learner in the sense that when I watch you, your words say one thing, but your body language says a whole nother thing.
Right.
And so in this day and time, with the generations that we're dealing with, helping them to understand, instead of like, I'm just keeping it real, you have to know what your real is being interpreted as.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Wholeheartedly.
And so also within level 1, we challenge them to create a vision for their life. So this Saturday, we introduced the vision boards on last week. So on this Saturday, those level 1 students are actually creating their vision. And I tried to focus on, instead of doing like this huge one where it's like 20 years out, in this time frame, I wanted them to focus on, where do you see yourself in the next year? Where do you want to be in the next 3 years? What do you want to have accomplished? And then where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then I challenge them to take the experience and the skills that they learned through the communication, how to write it out, and then also how to present themselves to help them understand, tell the story. Mm-hmm. Tell the story. So when you see it and everything that you're doing will help manifest it. So if you're doing something that doesn't align with what you're saying you want to accomplish in a year, then you recognize how you need to get back on track.
Right.
You see what I mean? And then goes to level 2. So here's where you're coming in, and I am so excited to have you and several other professionals that are coming. It's exciting. So the other thing, just in my work experience, and I have a phenomenal staff, volunteer staff of different friends and people in my ministry coming out of the business community, and then friends outside of our church, just like yourself. What they do is they bring what they have and they just pour out on these young people. And this makes the 4-year anniversary that I've overseen it. We've had Alton Cryer coming in. We've had Philip Ashley. We've had Daniel Watson. I call him the center row man.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, Dominic Lawson of Owls. It's just so many. Nina Allen Johnson. I mean, just so many powerful people that have come to just, pour in. And that, for me, that's tremendous. And so on level 2, what I went to the team and asked them and said, how can we set up something? And I tell people, I know how to bring a vision forward. I don't have to come up with all the ideas. And that's why I'm so grateful to God for the people that he's placed in my circle that help, because they bring me an idea. I basically tell them, here's what I want the young people to walk away with. And they start brainstorming and we bring forward the ideas. So in this world, you've got to be able to work with more than just the people that you know.
Right.
Let's just face it, in our work world today, we've got to work cross-functionally. I may work in HR. I still have to know how to work with someone in finance, work with someone in project management. I have to work with someone in IT. We may all come together on a team. So we've got to be able to say, well, that's not my gig. no, we have a goal, we have something we have to accomplish, so we have to work together, pull our ideas together, pull our talents together. And so level 2 is about project management. And so what these students experience is that they are tasked with coming up with a business idea or business service.
Okay.
And each week they are tasked with a different piece of their business plan. And every week, they're only there for 5 hours. Okay? They're only there for 5 hours on a Saturday. But in the 5 hours, which is really 4.5, because we treat it like a real job, they have to clock in when they get here. They have to clock out.
Okay.
They have to clock out for their lunch, clock back in, all that. We want them to have some real work experience.
Okay.
But they have to basically come up with the concept of the idea, do the research so they just don't come up there and just give us anything, and be prepared to present.
Yes.
They have to present it every week, and each one of them have a role to play. So this week you may be the project leader, and you on the team may be the presenter, or you're the research analyst. Okay, so how can you take direction from someone who's leading you? Doesn't mean you necessarily agree, but you have to follow their lead. And then how do you lead up when it's your turn? The next week you're the leader, and someone else is now going to be reporting into you and taking direction from you. You know, or how do you deal with the situation when your idea didn't get picked, but you're still part of the team? You don't get to check out just because we didn't choose your idea. All of those things. And they go, trust me, the students go through all of these different emotions, because it's like, I don't agree with that.
Right.
Sometimes we don't agree with it. Sometimes it's not the plan that we want to go with, but we're still on this team. We still have something to produce, so we get on board.
Yes.
And we contribute. So that's level 2, which the grand finale is on July the 6th, when business leaders like yourself are going to come in, and we treat it like Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And they're going to be evaluated for the grand prize of best pitch.
Okay.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it is. And I'm extremely excited, Wendolyn. I can't tell you, I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm excited to see what the students present and their preparation, everything that they've been going through that you just outlined. And so, our guest is Wendolyn Payne. And Wendolyn, there's so much to unpack, because we've got some similar parallel pathways as Orange Mound vet myself, and I grew up on Spotswood, right there by Votech.
I was on Carnes Road.
There you go. So we're just around the corner. I walked into 6200 Poplar, which is the region's, some people call it the Taj Mahal building there on Poplar. I walked into there as a kid, and that's where I first saw Brown brothers and sisters working at high levels. I'm not talking about just behind the teller line, and there's nothing against that at all. But I saw them in offices, right? Talking to people, handling business at a high level. I had not seen that, through my neighborhood. And so that exposure, and you mentioned the visual, when I play ball, and kids that play ball, we want to play ball because we've got a great visual. A lot of people watched the NBA draft last night. Those guys are signing big contracts, and they got, so the visual's there, right? The visual of the brother and sister that was at 6200 Poplar didn't live in my neighborhood, so there wasn't that direct visual. And when they took a bunch of us there, that's what kind of spawned it for me. So when you mentioned that in terms of your exposure, I have that similar story. And I love what's going on with the program. And so what are you seeing as kind of the next step as it continues to evolve? Obviously, you've been doing it for several years now. What's the next step?
The next step for me is really making sure that we are, how do I put this? I don't focus on trying to get in a lot of people, but I focus on, did they get what we taught them? So we try to keep up with the students. To make sure that as they go through the school year, because we partner with the parents, meaning that even though the summer program is only 5 Saturdays, throughout the school year, we're communicating with the parents. How are they doing? What's going on with them? We've had a couple one to graduate, and actually when he graduated from high school, he chose to come back that summer to make sure that he got all that he could. And so now that we have a solid 4-level program to mainly just build on it, incorporate more things into it to make sure how can we break down these different, the different things that we're trying to teach them. Because like level 3, we deal with communication skills and public speaking. There's several of us that came out of Dale Carnegie and Toastmasters. And so that's what we focus on. So
Yes.
they're going through that speech, because the world, you can't just communicate through your phone. And we want these young people to feel confident enough in themselves that if someone asks them about who they are or what they're about or what are they doing, they can speak very articulately of what it is they are doing, what they're about, and going forward from there. And then level 4 is getting students prepared for that college track or their workforce track and understanding life happens. So you could have a full scholarship to college today, and in the midst of that, for whatever reason, both of your parents die. What do you do in those situations? We're reenacting them, trying to help them understand how to think, how to address it. Or you're going to college and you're being bombarded with loans. They're trying to encourage you to do loans. And I didn't know this. This has been a learning experience for me from the talented group that we have, the staff, that the parent doesn't get to go in that room because the student is 18 years old.
Exactly.
So when they sit there, and this is no strike against the education system or anything like that, but that 18-year-old is being influenced and presented with all these different loans and things like that. They're set up for debt before they even get their first book. So how do you understand whether or not that the loan is the right option for you, or is there other ways that you can do it? And so these level 4 students, that's what they're going through. If life gives you a different situation, how to maneuver, how to troubleshoot, how to strategically think, how to attack these things that come your way, because you can have a great plan, but also things come up. And so for future, right now in the next 4 years, is making sure that we have these programs so laid out and tight that each student walks away with some true tools that level 1 students, when they go back to school next school year, they'll be able to understand what it means to have true character. Yes. And how to be accountable. If I said to my teacher, I'm going to have this to them by this time, I'm accountable for it. So that means I'm going to produce, not an excuse. We do not do excuses. We are very verbal. So no longer do we just do the nodding of the head. I always say, when I ask a question and I get the head shakes, I ask a question. Can a blind man tell me what you just said?
Right.
So
exactly.
It's always challenging them because they're in true competition out there in the world. So for me, it's about making sure they get it.
Yes.
And if that takes them outside of the 5 Saturdays, then that's what we do. We follow them throughout. If they have a game at school and they let us know, one of us is going to try to make it.
Right, exactly.
Because it's still the support. And so that's it. And honestly, after that point, who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
Yeah, there's
But
a number of different ways. Yeah, it can evolve. But, I mean, it just sounds like it's so involved already, Wendolyn. I mean, in terms of, again, the follow-up. And that's the big thing I always look for is, we do a lot of programs in the city, but, they're just they're transactional. They're done once, and then that's it until the next one's done. Well, who's keeping up with that particular, kid to know that did they grasp it? What's kind of their next step? What are they getting into? So we just churn through transactions of kids one after the other, and we're scratching our heads trying to figure out, well, how come we're not seeing any progress? And I think that goes a long way with what you're saying.
Yes, Ron. And I also think as part of not one group can do it all.
Right.
And so that's why I'm grateful for being able to, there's multiple programs, and that's why I think it's very important for wherever you are, wherever you're placed. I'm placed in the 38126 area. Even though we get students from all over, my responsibility is to make sure I'm doing my part for that group. And let's say there's a student from another program. If I come in contact with them, even though that the other program might not be able to do because there's such a mass and there's only a certain amount of workers, they may not be able to follow up, but it doesn't take anything away from me to connect with that student. Because true enough, when I go check on one student, they have other people around them, and it doesn't stop saying, hey, so how are you doing? My name's this. Is this part of your program? This is something you do in school? I know this student. And just getting to know these young people, and that way it becomes truly a village taking care of its village.
Yes, exactly. And so, again, our guest today, Wendolyn Payne. Wendolyn, how can, for those that are listening, whether they're in Memphis or whether they're in another city and another part of the country, how can they connect and get involved? If maybe they've heard something today that inspires them and they say, hey, I'd like to support. I'm not in Memphis, but I'd love to support this particular initiative. Or I'm in Memphis and I want to get off the sideline or whatever the case may be, and I want to get involved. How can they do so and connect with you?
Wonderful. We welcome the help because we are truly a donation, contribution sponsored programs, all donations and everything like that. So my own personal number, if you want to get involved, you have an interest in our program, my name is Wendolyn Payne. My direct number is 901-326-5455. And then the email address for any communication dealing with the program is glmccsummer@gmail.com.
Okay.
And then that way, if someone wants to make a contribution to the program or something like that, then I can actually send them the link that actually takes them directly to the online contributions for the program. We literally take all contributions, even those in kind, because we give out. Now, keep in mind, these students get paid a stipend.
Sure.
At the end.
Right.
And then also we do game time based on their homework, because they do actually have homework too, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Every week.
Absolutely.
And in game time, they have opportunities to win prizes, money, and then we have a huge award ceremony where all of the different winners of different things are announced. So we just make it a full experience for the students. And then we also do things for the parents. So I just encourage anyone in the city that basically has a young person getting ready for next year, that you already want to have something for them to do, please check us out. I'd be more than happy to speak with anyone about it. It's a great program, and we just look forward to the next year.
Yep, absolutely. And Wendolyn, one more time, can you give that email address?
It is glmccsummer@gmail.com.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. Wendolyn, I really appreciate as someone as a native Memphian, that's come back and is doing great things. You could have went anywhere, okay? I know you're sharp. You could have went anywhere, and they would have welcomed you with open arms. And we both know that Memphis, it has its obstacles, okay?
Yes.
But I'm so glad that for people like yourself that stay and are looking to make it a better place, in all seriousness, by working with our youth. And I'm a big proponent of the imagery and the exposure. And those are the big things. And so there are a lot of great programs out there, a lot of great people doing great work, but I really appreciate what you're doing to create that imagery and then that exposure and then the accountability to go along with that, because that's what youth need. There's a lot of ho-hum stuff, and and kids are allowed to kind of finagle their way sometimes through life, and they don't get the real hardcore accountability that people are counting on you. And when you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you're there and you're present. And so I love that. I love being a part of it. I'm looking forward to it there on July 6th and then beyond. And I encourage anybody here in MYB community that's listening to this podcast, and no matter what point that you're listening to this podcast, I invite you to connect with Wendolyn and get involved in the program. And maybe, if you're talking right, maybe Wendolyn can come to your town and help you put one together in your town. I'm going to build your consulting practice here, Wendolyn.
Look at you, Ron. Slow roll.
So
I'm flattered, but slow roll.
They got money. They can fly Wendolyn out. She go put the whole thing together for you. You just got to take care of her now. And then she come back to Memphis.
Thank you, Ron. Ron, I thank you. I'm truly flattered and extremely humbled because I am truly the product of my team. And Ron, I want to thank you personally and just those that have confirmed that they're going to be there on July the 6th. I can't say it enough how much we truly appreciate individuals that are able to take that time out. You guys are business owners, business leaders, and we truly value you being able to sacrifice that time to make an impact on these young people, because I am a firm believer that it shows up later. What we sacrifice now for the young people to let them know they are worthy of us imparting it into them is going to show up later, because quite often they get brushed over and everyone's busy. We understand that. But when they see people that look like them, it's not that there aren't other people in the community that will help, but when they look like them and they see they took the time, I'm important enough for them to take the time to come and impart and invest in me, that goes truly a long way. So I don't want to leave off this without thanking you again and thanking each and every one of those that have confirmed with me that they're going to be there. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Wendolyn, I'm honored to be able to do it. I thank you for asking me, and I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you for those kind words, okay? So Have a great weekend. If I can be a resource in any other way, certainly let me know. You know how to communicate with me. And again, I encourage everybody that's listening to connect with Wendolyn if you see value in being a resource to our youth, and I hope that you do. So, Wendolyn, thank you so much. You're very kind. Thank you for taking time out here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and best to you personally and professionally.
Thank you. Same to you, Ron. Have a great one.
All right. Thanks, Wendolyn.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Wendolyn Payne joining us. glmccsummer at gmail.com. Connect with her. She provided her direct contact number. And like we were saying, that's a great program that's going on here in Memphis that's helping youth. And you mentioned the names, including our co-founder of the Binge Podcast Network and of Owls LLC, Dominic Lawson. You heard the other names that she mentioned as business leaders, community leaders here in Memphis and beyond. And so I'm excited to be just mentioned in the list with the names of those men and women, some that she named, some she didn't. But all together, I'm excited about that and looking forward to July 6th with the Summer Youth Program. And we all get there. We all get better as we build our youth. We're only going to be as good as who's going to be there in our future. And so we all were once the youth. We know how important it is to support them, and I hope that we continue to do so. All right, now let's get to Ron's rundown. All right, there were so many things that went on this week, y'all. I could go for another hour, but I sure as hell not going to do that. And so one thing I want to connect with you on is the NBA draft was last night. The Memphis Grizzlies selected John Morant from Murray State with the second pick. With the 21st pick, they selected Derek Payne from Gonzaga. Payne is a power forward. Morant is a point guard. Morant's going to be taking over for Mike Conley. I want to take time out. I've had a personal connection with Mike as being part of his bowl-a-thon that he's had here in Memphis and some other avenues that we've had a chance to do business. So I want to shout out Mike Conley. Mike was drafted by the Grizzlies in 2007 at a time when the franchise, was kind of in between some things. He was not highly touted coming in. It took him a few years to kind of get his career really up and going, and he took a lot of criticism. And he's dealt with criticism at different levels. He's been a phenomenal player, phenomenal advocate in the community. And I wanted to take a quick moment to thank him. And it signifies the end of an era, end of the mentioned grit and grind era with Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, Mark Gasol, and Tony Allen. And so I wish him the best in Utah and for him and his family personally and professionally. And I just wanted to take that time to thank him for what he did for my family, as well as being able to connect and work with him on his Bowl-a-thon fundraiser over the years. So shout out, Mike. Appreciate you. You're always looked at as a legend here in Memphis. And shout out to you and your family, man. And I hope you win and win big in Utah with a healthy career as you further it there in Salt Lake City. And again, man, if you happen to hear this, Mike, if I can be a resource, as you know, just give me a call. Reach out to me, man. But it's the end of an era. A new era starts now with some young players and some new veterans that are going to be on the team. So we'll see what's going to go on with that. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. Thank you all so much. This has been episode number 98 of the Minding Your Business podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the podcast or even advertising, showcasing your business, Ron at themybpodcast.com is the move you make. Themybpodcast.com. You can see additional content. Check out The Binge. The Binge is continuing to grow on abinge.com, the Binge Podcast Network, with myself and, as I mentioned, co-founder Dominic Lawson of the Startup Life Podcast, as well as Owls LLC. Have a great weekend. Pour into somebody else this weekend. That's my challenge to all of you, is pour into somebody this weekend. Take the best practices that you heard from Jennifer, from Wendolyn, look to implement those, and we're going to be back. Next episode's episode number 99. We're getting close, y'all, to number 100. You don't know what I'm going to break out with for that episode number 100. You don't know what direction I might come at you from, but we got episode 99 coming up. So enjoy the weekend. I'm going to be traveling some on this coming week, but we'll be back again next Friday for episode number 99. Go be great for yourself, be great for your family, be great for your community. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. Peace.